This conference will now be recorded.
I love how that comes up. So, Lynn, that was very nice of you to ask. It's weird being the moderator and sharing, but we'll get to that at the end. I would love for us to first speak with our newbie, Nick. And Nick, I'm so happy Andrew Short introduced us.
Same here.
Nick is going to join us for the first ever ANCAN patient-powered joint operation that's coming up on August 30th. And he's going to be on with his brother. But I'll let you, Nick, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? And
Sure. So my name is Nick. I live in Westchester County, New York. I'm married to my wife, Kara, and I have two kids, Nicholas, 8, and Jake, 4. And so it's pretty much all about the kids, and they keep us busy. I work for PwC, tax audit and accounting firm, and pretty much been working from home since the pandemic. I don't think we'll ever go back. Anyway, I was diagnosed with polycythemia vera, which is part of the myeloproliferative neoplasms, about 4.5 years ago. I would say it was shocking, confusing a little bit. It's a rare disease. It only affects about 150,000 people in the United States. And I think, like a lot of people with a diagnosis like that, I dealt with it all in my head, right? It's a confusing diagnosis. It's rare. You start to go online and run through statistics and life expectancy and drugs and all that stuff. And I sort of dealt with that all in my head. And it impacted me a great deal with depression, anger for a long time. And then I think what sort of changed my mindset a little bit was, the urging of my wife, Kara, to really push me to do some good. We have this diagnosis. She used that word a lot, and we should try and do some good. And so I try to be, as much as I can, a patient advocate. I've done panel discussions. I've done a documentary. I've done, I work very closely with LLS. I'm the chairperson for the Staten Island Light the Night event. So it helps me sort of move it from the front of the brain to the back of the brain, knowing that I'm trying to do some good to help the overall cause. And so it's sort of calmed my thoughts down a little bit. I have not participated in a group like this, although I've heard great things about it, and I'm really looking forward to it. So that's a short summary of my story. I appreciate everyone welcoming me, and I'm looking forward to getting to know everybody.
Nick, thank you. And your experience will be wonderful, especially that we do have Al here, who also has PV. And we do have someone else who has been saying they're going to join us, but they haven't. And this has been for many, many months. And perhaps knowing that there are two here, perhaps now she will, because she'll feel a little more comfortable.
Strength in numbers, right?
Absolutely. And, now, I don't know, Tom, we're going to have the numbers moving up on us in another area. So our other co-host has multiple myeloma. Tom and I have CLL, and we have an AYA patient who has Hodgkin's lymphoma, but darn if I can remember which type, because it's so rare. I think she said there are maybe 5 people in the US who have what she has.
Oh, wow.
Some very small, and Tom may remember anyway, but she's, Farron can't join us tonight because she's been pretty ill. And she said to say hello to everyone so that you all know. But hello, Sally. We have someone else who has joined us here. So Nick, is there anything this evening that you would like to talk about, or anything new in your journey?
I think I'm in listening mode, especially for my first time. But I've I don't know if how Al is being treated, but right now I'm being treated by a phlebotomy and aspirin. And but once ropeg interferon gets approved, I think my doctor will. We've discussed this in great length, and I think I will go on that. And so I'm nervous about that. Right? I've tried he's brought it up before, with Pegasus and some other drugs, and I've sort of avoided it. I don't want to go on it if I don't have to. But there was evidence of Ropeg slowing progression, and so I always said that if that happened, there was a drug out there that slowed progression and was less toxic, I would go on it. And so, I'm a little nervous about that, so I don't know anyone's experience with drugs or Al, you in particular, but that might be something if it comes up in conversation, we could talk about.
Okay. Thank you. Tom, are
Sure.
you familiar with PV drugs? So Tom Henry is our expert pharmacist here in the group, but follows certain things. But perhaps Tom can weigh in once Al, if Al would, Al, I don't know if you want to share what you're being treated with.
Hello, Nick. I'm Al Ruvalcaba. I'm down here in Tucson, Arizona. I was diagnosed with PV last year in January, but I think I've had experienced some of the symptoms probably a couple years prior to the diagnosis. And they put me on hydroxyurea. I'm being treated up at Mayo in Scottsdale, which is about an hour and a half drive from Tucson. I was getting lab work done every 2 weeks last year. And in between that time, they had me on about, I think it was 1500 in the morning and 1500 at night. And somewhere along the line, about August or September, I was getting lab work done in Tucson, and they weren't getting the results up there, which caused my hemoglobin to go way down to like about a 4 and a 5. I ended up in the hospital for about 3 days and had 3 blood transfusions. And then, so I was off of it, trying to get my numbers back. And about November, I started getting back on it gradually. And right now I'm at 1,000 milligrams in the morning alone. That's just 2 capsules. And I've had 3 phlebotomies. Haven't had one in the last 2 months. And as of right now, my numbers are stable.
That's great. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
How are you feeling?
Okay, go ahead.
Al, how are you feeling?
I've been feeling pretty good. Again, depending what I'm doing, I just have to pace myself. I don't know where my fuel level is when I wake up in the morning. So whatever I do, I take a lot of breaks, watch it, because I will end up on the couch for a couple hours trying to get back. Or if I do something, I've had a couple projects around the house, and it's just my nature. I just keep going and keep going, and I don't listen to no one, and then I pay for it the next day. But once I recuperate, I'm back up again, Well, and then the other thing that doesn't help is this dry heat that we have down here in Arizona. So we always say we're drinking enough water, but in reality, we never do, So I think it catches up after a while. So I got to stay on top of that. I've been taking the drip drops, which is some people call it like a liquid IV. They're small packages of all the stuff you need. I think it's better than Gatorade. And I think you're only supposed to take one a day, but I'll take one every couple hours until I feel good. And those help me out a lot. And of course, the Heineken 00 too.
Are those just something you over the counter, Al? Drip drops? Or is that a prescription?
No, it's not a prescription. No, my daughter orders some for us. They come in from Amazon, and she keeps me stocked up on that.
one other thing for me to add on to Amazon. My husband's always like saying, what are all these Amazon charges? And they're like,
Yeah. So my son-in-law's a firefighter, and down here in the Southwest, well, it's hot, and when they're in those uniforms, that's where we learn from them, from the firefighters. Those guys drink them all the time to stay hydrated.
I'm looking at them right now, and they are electrolyte powder for dehydration. They come in various flavors, and a 32 pack is about 35 bucks.
I haven't tried one. I haven't tried one in the Heineken 00 yet, though.
I buy electrolytes in a drop form. It's very convenient. Put it into whatever I'm drinking, and because I think buying something like Gatorade is ridiculous.
Right.
So, and the drops are very convenient. Easy to find on Amazon.
I noticed that Nick and Al are young people, relatively speaking. Is PV a disease that tends to affect more young people? I mean, I know with CLL, the average age is like 72 or something like that.
I think it's about 60. It's rare to have it. I was diagnosed in my mid-30s, so it's a rare disease and rare to be diagnosed that young.
And
like Al, sorry.
I'm 62. I was diagnosed last year in January, but like I said, I think I had the symptoms a couple years prior.
Yeah, I actually, to that point, I pulled blood work 10 years prior to my diagnosis, and 2 sets, and they were both elevated RBCs and platelets. And then I think back to high school, and I remember having symptoms in high school, as early as high school.
So what would be the symptoms that you would have?
Anything from itching to bone pain to gout to nausea to blurry vision. I remember at the dinner table in high school just going blank. I couldn't see, and it would come with nausea, it would come with headaches, and then it would pass in like a half hour. And I would get that like every 2 or 3 months. I'd get sort of bouts of that. Gout. I don't know if I mentioned gout, but there's a whole host of symptoms.
The symptoms I had was I was seeing a podiatrist because my toes and my feet were hurting. And it was the second podiatrist who I went and seen, and she sent an email to my doctor and said she wanted to see lab work done, and that's where it came up. And but other symptoms prior to that and during my diagnosis was like I mentioned this before, is like if you're out on a fishing boat all day and when you get off, you're still motion sickness. And those were my symptoms. Is I get up and I walk and I feel like I just got off a boat.
Fatigue and the itching were bad too.
I can see how the doctors could have been befuddled, at least a general practitioner, and especially at your young age, Nick.
Yeah, they didn't even mention it, which again, platelets can fluctuate, right? If you're sick, they go up. So, I don't blame them, but it's just interesting to pull that. It's more information, right? So it's interesting to pull blood work, past blood work, I think.
how did you get diagnosed? Did you just advocate for yourself?
So work pays for a very thorough all-day physical exam. So they do everything you're there from like 9 in the morning to like 5, and they do every kind of test under the sun. And I always heard about it, and I never utilized the benefit. And then one day I just said I'm going to do it, and they flagged the red blood cells and platelets as being high, and they said you could follow up with a hematologist oncologist or just monitor it for a year. And then, Kara pushed me to go, and he tested me for leukemia or JAK2, and it came back JAK2. So I don't know. Prior to that physical, I don't think I did a physical for a while. several years. So if it wasn't for me just saying, hey, let me go try this benefit that work offers, I don't know if I would. Maybe I had itching right before that, and I just thought it was like allergies or something like that, like really bad itching. Maybe that would have pushed me eventually to go, but I was ignoring it like every other PV patient when they first experience those symptoms, right? They tend to ignore them.
And I never had the itching.
Yeah.
I mean, some of those itching some of the symptoms sound like symptoms I have had for, it's until you get the blood work and the facts there, the symptoms are just places to get you started in looking, I guess.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and so like in my case, and this happens a lot with patients, is we don't have any symptoms, and you just go in for a routine blood test, for your physical, and all of a sudden it comes back that your white blood cells are elevated. And so in my case, I've been very fortunate. I've never really had symptoms of the disease. So some people will have what you mentioned, the fatigue. There's a lot of people that have skin reactions that are reported among people with CLL. But there's, one of the things that I've learned is I've always focused on the CLL and been a member of, CLL support groups. But with being a member of this group, I have learned that there's a lot of commonalities between the different, blood cancers that we all have. And, like Al brought up one thing, and it seems to be universal across all of the blood cancers, as that hydration is really critical, particularly if you're on treatment. Most of the CLL medications recommend that you drink a minimum of 60 ounces a day, of water. And I know that there's some crossover with the drugs that we use to multiple myeloma, like Sally has. So, there's definitely some similarities. So it's interesting to have you on board. Michelle had asked me about the drug that you mentioned, and I believe that I sent Al some information about that. I believe it's in a clinical trial now that looks pretty promising. But I don't know a date when there might possibly be.
I think they said November 13th. They had a complete response letter that was sent, and then they responded back, and it was primarily because they couldn't inspect the facility in Taiwan, I believe, because of COVID. And so they've resolved that, and I think November 13th is the date.
Yeah.
Al, have you been thinking about going in a clinical trial or speaking to anyone at Mayo?
Yes, I did. The last video meeting I had, I did bring it up, and they're going to put me on the list. And if I qualify, as of course, when I brought it up, they had just finished one. So yeah, they put me on the list, and the next time it comes up, if I qualify and I'm a candidate for it, yeah, they'll probably look into it.
And is that
which clinical trial is that, Al?
That I don't know. There's two of them that they've done at Mayo. I don't know which one would be.
Sorry, Michelle.
Maybe by our next meeting. When's your next appointment, Al? Maybe you'll be able to know.
No, maybe. What's July? Yeah, I don't think so. I think it is in August, maybe in August or September, my next meeting. But I could, yeah, no, I need to stay in touch because the last 2 or 3 video meetings I've had or appointments, it's been with my doctor's nurse practitioner, and her name always comes up. And Rick and I have spoke about this, is that I need to make sure that I at least see my direct doctor from Mayo at least once a year. And her name is on the next meeting, so I believe it is going to be with her, which would give me more information on where we're at and which way we're heading.
So is the trial you're speaking of, Nick, is that a multi-center trial or? or only for where you go?
It is a multi-center. It's Pharma Essentia is doing it, and it's for PV. And I think, I think it should be approved in November. I think it's, all the data is promising, and we'll see. But, it's the idea of they're all toxic, right? So this is supposed to be less toxic, and, we'll see.
Al, that might be something to ask about too.
What was the name of that trial, Nick?
Ropeg interferon, right? That's the name of the drug, and Pharma Essentia is, I think it's Proud PV is the trial, if I remember correctly.
Well, that's such a civilized name compared to some.
I think, Pegasus is a form of interferon, but that's very toxic to some people, and so this is supposed to be, attack the mutation and slow progression and be less toxic.
In reading about PV on the Mayo website, it says that blood clots are an issue. Has that been an issue for either one of you? I used the word, you may have said it a while ago, you used a term it sounded like phlebotomy. Has blood clots been a problem, and do they have you on blood thinner because of that?
Just a baby aspirin.
Okay.
For me too, yeah, baby aspirin, but and yeah, so the point of phlebotomy is to keep your hematocrit levels down below 45, which would decrease the risk of clotting. So it's really just a management type treatment, phlebotomy only. So what we're talking about actually affects the biology of the disease. So, but yeah, that's the huge risk in PV is the.
So it is interesting on the, as you were saying, Tom, about the similarities on some of the things that we have. And I know with my CLL, but it wasn't until I was on treatment, I always thought it was treatment, I started getting, like hive-like itchiness and rashes. And I always thought it was from the treatment. So that could be from the CLL itself?
Yes, that's my understanding is that, it's not one of the top 5 or 6 CLL symptoms, but yeah, skin eruptions and, any kind of a rash, those kinds of things. And I think that's one of the things that you learn as the longer that you're, being treated. So, I was diagnosed 2015, and, it just seems like for every person I meet, everyone has one or two things that's just the slightest bit different. We hear stories anecdotally about people that have, since they've had CLL, they get huge like reactions to mosquito bites and stuff like that. And it's not just one or two. It's like all of a sudden you hear people, in large numbers talking about how, hey, I used to get bit by a mosquito and I got a little bleb, and now I get this big, nasty honking thing. So, but, it affects everybody differently. I'm one of the fortunate ones that with mine, I was able to continue working, right up until the beginning of COVID as a pharmacist working in hospitals. It just wasn't in my safety profile to continue to work in a hospital setting. So I chose not to go back into the hospital. And I do interim work, so I go from hospital to hospital. So it was something that I was able to do. I wasn't like quitting a job in the middle or something like that. So, but it's interesting how we all react differently, and all have different issues.
It is on so multiple myeloma. Do you have skin eruptions as well, or itchiness?
She raised her thumb. She's muted.
Sally, did that to bridge, or was that to a skin? You're muted.
That was to Lynn and Bridge.
I was wondering about that. Seth, how about you?
Well, none of that, not at all.
Yeah, this mosquito bite, so I've always had, they've always gotten crazy huge. So I don't know if that means I'm really sweet or, or maybe I had CLL longer than before diagnosis. I don't know. But I do remember a time after diagnosis, but pre-treatment, and that we were at an event in Florida at night outside in a lake. That's like a recipe for disaster right there, right? And I counted, I had 44 bites on my legs, and they were just on fire. I could not sleep. I didn't realize, so they're probably worse than they were before. And it's just, there wasn't enough anything to put on them. And when I got back, I finally found a prescription. It was given to me clobetasol, and that really calmed them down. And I don't travel without it now if I'm going to be near anywhere that's buggy. And I go, doused in any, whatever, mosquito repellent I can, because that just was not fun. That was a horrible, horrible experience. So does that happen, Nick, to also to you with bug bites, the swelling of them, or anyone else? It's very strange. Interesting you brought it up, Tom.
Mm-hmm.
Not with bug bites. Bruising, yes. I get like rashes on my hands. Just at night mostly. It's just very itchy on my hands, but not bug bites.
I can remember having rashes, goodness, back in the 1980s, which would have been 25, 30 years before I was diagnosed, and he'd asked a typical question, honey, did you change the detergent or something like that? But I would break out with a rash on the back of my calf. And I can remember seeing my dad scratching the back of his leg. I thought, well, this must be hereditary. And so, it was like, well, is this dryness? Or we not need to use more hand cream? So it's kind of a mystery whether that was related. 13 years before I was diagnosed, and my diagnosis was SLL, so the blood was not what tipped them off. But they're both the same disease, but mine was in the lymph nodes. But I began having fever with no cause, and I would be in a meeting and I would think, boy, it's freezing in here, and I'd go back to the motel room and check my temperature, and it'd be 102, and I felt okay other than being freezing. And so I had 2002, I had a doctor checking me and couldn't find anything wrong. And so it was 2013, after I had run fever for a week, my doctor said, let's get an x-ray, chest x-ray. And from the chest x-ray said, now we're going to get a doctor scheduled you now for a CT scan. Well, that just elevates your apprehension even more. And of course, that's when they saw the enlarged lymph nodes, and which led to my diagnosis. But looking back, the doctor said, you probably have had this for at least 5 years, the Dr. MD Anderson. And I think he said that based on the size of the lymph nodes. But I had symptoms that went back at least to about 2001, about 12 years prior. And I guess we all kind of played that game. Was there precursor symptoms, or was there somebody else in our family that had blood cancer?
Recently I've been thinking about, did I have CLL earlier? Because back in the early 90s is when they came out with the hepatitis B vaccines. And it's a pretty known fact that people with CLL don't always produce antibodies to vaccines. And hepatitis B vaccine is one of them. And now with the COVID, neither Michelle or I, who have been tested since having received the COVID, have produced antibodies. But it's interesting that, so I think I got those shots like maybe 1989 or early, 90s. And I was going to deploy with the Air Force Reserve down at Guyana in South America. So they wanted to do a test to make sure I was covered and protected, and it was negative. And so I wound up getting 3 more shots. So I got 6 altogether, and I still don't have antibodies to hepatitis B. And I've had 3 Pfizers and a J&J, and I still don't have antibodies to the COVID vaccines or the COVID. So, so that started me to thinking about, is it possible that I had a very, low level CLL, back even that early? Because I have two different clones, and, one of them is a 13Q, which is one of the really slow growing forms of CLL, and the other one's the 17P, which is one of the more aggressive. So, did I have the 13Q and then I mutated and had a 17P later on? I don't know. So, but it's not uncommon to hear people say that, have their doctor say, I think you've had this longer than, when we diagnose it today. So, and that seems to be across many of the different blood cancers that we hear those kinds of reports. I think with people with myeloma, they tend to have symptoms earlier in the process than CLL patients. CLL, many patients never get symptoms, or, it can be very slow growing. So,
Tom, it sounds like there should be a clinical trial to test people who itch or have no reason for a rash or don't get antibodies and they don't have a known blood cancer, or they're allergic to mosquito bites.
yeah.
And then they should all be tested thoroughly for blood cancer.
Could that be a future screen, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's funny that we all seem to, and I hear that with other patients, we all kind of wonder about, gee, does that mean, I can get to, I mean, I was, maybe I had it before, and I've heard that from Nick here, and Lynn was just saying it, and you, Tom. So it is rather interesting. I wanted to know if anyone, and I do want to share later, but if anyone has anything that they need time for, so that we know how to parcel out our time tonight. Everyone speak up at once here.
I just need a couple of minutes whenever.
Me too. Anyone else have anything they wanted to discuss?
I can give an update in about a minute.
Okay, Lynn.
Hi.
And hi, Jim. Do you have anything?
Well, I have, a thing to share. It's a funny though, but it's still a thing to share. It'll be interest to everybody, I believe.
We did miss having your sister come tonight. We were speaking about, so I think, Tom, you had mentioned hereditary or whatever, and that Jim's, your sister, right, was going to join us tonight?
Yes, she was diagnosed about a year and a half ago, I believe, with multiple myeloma. So she's been going through all kinds of things. And I finally said, look, let's, join us here, please. So hopefully next month.
Jim, where did she live, in Virginia, or is she closer to Sally in a geographic proximity?
Let's see. She is in, Oklahoma or Tulsa.
All I think of is the musical Oklahoma, with the wind,
Right.
when the wind comes sweeping down the plain.
Jim, I thought you were going to have your sister call me.
Yes, well, she has to sign up first, and she claims
She doesn't have to sign up. She just has to go to the website, and she doesn't have to fill out her stuff for HealthTree. I can help her with that.
Oh, I didn't know that, because I thought the person had to, fill out all the stuff, and we, to get. So
Go to myelomacoach.com or .org, and then just scroll through, say I want to coach, and then scroll down through it, and you can sign up for HealthTree at that time if you want to. If you don't, just have her contact me.
Yeah, but okay, email.
I'll take your what?
Contact you. Is that email wise, or is that a
Sure.
phone call? Okay.
No, just have her email me.
I do have it. So great. Yes.
Yes.
I will tell her that. She was.
We actually have a summit in Park City starting on the 13th. And there's a roundtable group with about 25 of us meeting with Squibb, Glaxo, and Amgen. And then
Okay.
we have 4 more days of coach training, but I can still talk to her.
Great. Okay. I will tell her.
So when we talk about the hereditary part, it's interesting. Lynn and I are in another group and meets, fairly frequently. And we have a brother and sister that both have CLL that are in that group. So, very interesting that happens. And again, we hear a number of people that have had family members, parents, typically, that had CLL, that now they have CLL. A lot of times it's kind of nebulous because it was grandma and they just called it leukemia. They didn't get into the, the more descriptive terminology, but you hear a fair amount of it. But it's kind of interesting that Jim has a sister with another blood cancer, and Jim, you're a CLL.
No, I am a strange type here. Essentially, the prostate cancer.
Okay.
Essentially in the lymph nodes, and I may have a third or a second sister that has a form of a blood cancer also, and it has a long name. So I haven't had a chance anyway to talk to her about it, because she is in sort of a denial stage. It's probably about 90 days old, so it's a little hard to speak to her about it, but eventually I will.
Yeah. I think Nick mentioned it earlier. I think we all get into that, we're scared and there's a period of denial, and that's just the response to, being told that you have any type of cancer. And so it's just a matter of, taking one day at a time. But I think one of the things that I learned early on is you have to be really careful where you go for information. And so we always warn, do not use Dr. Google, because a lot, you don't know where the information comes from that's in regular Google. And a lot of it is outdated. When I first was diagnosed, I honestly believed that I had somewhere between 3 and 5 years to live. And now I'm 5.5 years post-diagnosis. And, as of October of last year, they weren't able to find any CLL. So I'm in a deep remission. So, so you got to be really careful. That information that I was basing that on was from prior to a lot of the new drugs that are available. And so that has completely changed how CLL is treated. And, prior to 2014, if you weren't in a clinical trial, you got chemotherapy. And with the type of genetic mutation that I have, chemotherapy doesn't work. And so it's really important that you find good sources of information. Nick, it sounds like you've made that transition, that you're looking at clinical trials and stuff like that. I know we all witnessed Al coming on here when he was newly diagnosed. I think it was like within a month or two. And Al has made a remarkable, amount of progress with his journey. He's not in denial. I think he was in the early stages, and we prodded him and we poked him, and that's one of the good things. So it's unusual for us to get somebody that joins that has as much of a track record as you do, Nick. But I also think it's great to see the progress that we've been able to help our friend Al through his journey, and now he's doing much better and feeling good. So that's the benefit. So if you know anybody else that is a blood cancer patient, if you can, reach out to them and ask them to join. We've had conversations about, in the future, maybe, if we got a lot of people in, that we might break it down into, more related forms of blood cancer. But, it's good to have the diversity here and to share information and experiences. And it's interesting, we all go through it. Even though I'm a pharmacist, it was like I was scared out of my wits, until I started to do some research. And so it's a natural reaction. And, I think to a certain degree, we all deny. That's part of how we cope. I just vowed to myself I was going to learn as much as I could, a little bit every day about CLL. And, that has served me well. And it sounds like, Nick, you're doing that, and Al has made that transfer over from being a scared guy, just like we all are in the early stages, to now much more understanding of where his disease is. So it was a great transition to watch, Al, the progress you've made in the last year and a half since you first joined.
Al, it's amazing to hear you be able to rattle off information now. And I remember at the beginning, you're like, it was just like you were at the bottom of this huge mountain and, all these terms. So.
Well, yeah, it was, getting diagnosed. Where do you go? What do you do? You get the worst thoughts in your mind. This group has helped me out a lot, and thank you guys. My love to you guys. Thank you. Where's Kenny?
Kenny has no internet. He must be having a little bit of a storm down there, but he's been without internet all day. So
I told Rick, I said, Kenny's very entertaining. I said, I can listen to him all night.
I was telling my son yesterday that memories I had of when I first went to work right out of college as an engineer, and how quickly I learned how little I knew. And the other thing that was important in that first year was to learn who I could trust for good information and who could give it to me in a reasonable amount of time. And it's the same thing that Tom was talking about earlier with our blood cancers, determining where the sources are that can be depended upon. And as much as we use Facebook, that's not a good place for information. It's a good place for opinions, but not for solid information. So, I hope for your type of blood cancer that you've been able to find good sources. And of course, there's in my mind, if you have a doctor that you can really trust, a specialist, that's the top guy. But what you have is a balance against what he says. I did want to share real quickly, and I'll get it out of the way, Michelle. This week, I've got an appointment coming in August, and I see my oncologist, I have a CAT scan, I see a pulmonologist, and I'll see a hematologist. Well, the appointments were not coming together, and you know how COVID is, trying to get everything. It seemed to have muddied the water. But I finally, in the past, I've just depended upon the people at MD Anderson to coordinate, and I've sent emails to prod them in different ways. And this week I said, I'm just going to get on the phone and start talking to people. When is this doctor going to be in clinic? When is this doctor going to be in clinic? And I shifted some things around, so I'm not going to have to stay in a hotel for 8 days, but hopefully we'll be able to get out and in and out in half that time. So, and in my case, it's a 400-mile trip one way. So, and that's just what I want to share is, in my case, I had to advocate to get my schedules ironed out.
So did you get it ironed out now?
Yes, I've got one doctor left to schedule, and he's in clinic on Thursday and Friday. So and that's going to work fine. My CAT scan is on I think my CAT scan's on Tuesday. I see the oncologist on Wednesday, and on Thursday I see the pulmonologist. So hopefully I'll be able to see it's a benign hematologist. So hopefully I'll be able to see him on Thursday. and I see him because of a blood clotting disorder I have.
So please keep it, well, at our next meeting, maybe you'll know. I haven't checked the calendar yet to see, so we look forward to hearing them. You can always reach out. You know how to find me and Tom, so thank you. Let's see.
I want to bring something up. Stepping back to when we were talking about all the symptoms, when I first met with my doctor up at Mayo, she did mention some people have this disease and never know they have it and will die of something else before being diagnosed. Did you hear that, Nick?
Yes. Yes. And some people will have it and never get symptoms at all, which is why they don't know they have it. But yeah, I've heard that.
So I don't know if that's similar to the other blood cancers.
Or with PV, they could have a clot that goes to the lungs or their hearts and die from that. And
Sally, you have been very quiet tonight. Do you have anything you'd like to share?
I've just been very interested in hearing about all the other blood cancers. I'm quite knowledgeable about multiple myeloma, and I agree with about 4 things that have said. Number 1, don't trust Dr. Google. Don't do it. Number 2, you are your own best advocate. Number 3, when you're overwhelmed, do some box breathing, just breathe and go on and find out the answer and get a coach and a mentor. I think we're really lucky in the multiple myeloma world because we do have a very large coach program, and it's connected to Myeloma Crowd. And I think I shared with you, Michelle, that HealthTree, the hub, is going to start inviting CLL patients into the same group. So I think that's exciting to help others as well.
They beat us to
But
it.
we have, multiple myeloma has several of the same genetic abnormalities as CLL, as Tom was saying, 17P or 13Q. Those are both multiple myeloma markers as well. So anyway, I'm just listening.
How's your exercise? I know you had told us you'd been walking a lot for the last.
I'm walking more until I have to come in and take a nap. I've lost 15 pounds in the last 2 months, which is great.
That is wonderful. I see it in your face, actually. Are you going to say something?
That's not where I'd like to lose it, but a little lower, please. But anyway, I'm excited I'm actually going to get on a plane and fly to Park City or Utah or Salt Lake City. So that'll be fun.
How do you feel about flying with COVID and everything?
I flew to Indianapolis for my niece's wedding about a month ago, came home and was sick for 5 days, but I've had another IG infusion since then. So hopefully I'll try to my theory is if I'm last on the plane and first off, that saves me from another 100 people having to walk by. So
that's another commonality, the IVIG infusions.
Yeah.
I had mine today, so I'm a little loopy from the Benadryl.
I had mine yesterday and I'm still loopy.
We can at least blame it on something right on these days.
Right. As long as I don't have to take Dex anymore, I'm fine. Well, hello, monkey. The monkey came up to the house.
Oh my God. My dog, who's right here, he's that would be interesting.
Yep.
Seth, did you have anything, Seth, to share for us? Oh, Sally, I'm sorry. Were you through?
No, I was just going to say hi to our missing troopers when you see them or hear from them.
Absolutely.
Sally, I'm curious, what's your trouble with Dex?
other than insomnia and mood changes and everything else, it's just wild.
I get plenty of
Terrible
decks.
stuff.
I get plenty of decks in my treatment, but never had trouble with it.
Really, everybody I've known has had really bad problems sleeping. I mean, I'd be up baking at 3 o'clock in the morning because I'm wide awake.
Well, I recall in my initial chemo, sex was a big part of that, and I actually, while other people, felt lousy after chemo, I recognized that I got a boost from the decks
Yeah,
right
yeah.
after
How
treatment.
much were you taking?
Oh, I don't remember what it was in my initial chemo, and now during my infusions, it used to be 20 milligrams, and they brought it down to 10 because they
Yeah,
were worried about my bone health.
yeah.
But I've never had that. I've never felt that problem, trouble sleeping, being up at 2 in the morning baking brownies or anything like that.
It was amazing.
But I always thought it was amusing how I would almost look forward to my
Oh,
chemo.
because you're charged. You're just raring to go, and
I
then the
remember,
crash, and then you start the next week and do it again.
I remember bringing my shopping cart with me to chemo because I would go to the supermarket afterwards because I felt so much better because of the decks.
Wow. You almost make it sound like it's not horrible, but I know it has so many bad things about it. And then the crash, as you were saying. So Seth, what's going on with you? Would you like to share anything tonight?
Oh, just getting by. I do have a question. If anybody can help me, I'm planning some travel in October, but I'm on Forteo now, which requires refrigeration, and that makes travel complicated. I've looked at, I found containers and packaging uh, designed for people to travel with drugs that need this kind of thing, and that'll be fine. But I need to be able to uh, refreeze the ice pack it comes with every night in a hotel room, and we won't always be in the same hotel room. So I have to depend on a good refrigerator freezer in the hotel room. Otherwise, I'm going to be grabbing ice from an ice machine, going with Plan B from day to day. So
How
I wonder
often
if
do you
anybody has
take
experience traveling. What?
How often do you take that?
Daily.
Okay.
It's in an injector pen. It's
Yeah.
all in an injector pen. So if I ruin that one device by keeping it out of refrigeration for too long, then I've ruined the whole batch.
Okay. So how long are you going to be gone for?
10 days.
Are you going to be in the same location all 10 days?
No.
Because, one of the things you can do is dry ice.
You
And
know,
it is available in some grocery stores, which will get you 3 or 4 days, without having to worry about refreezing the ice packs. Or the other option is to ask at the hotel, if they have a kitchen, where they serve food, and could you put your medicine in there?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was thinking even the option of, being able to get it filled halfway through the trip at some local pharmacy, and then getting, dry ice there. You probably could go 5 days in a well insulated container, but I don't think you can do 10.
Well, the trouble with dry ice is it's too cold.
Okay.
It has to be kept at refrigerator temperature, and dry
Oh,
ice would just be too extreme.
yeah.
But I am planning actually on calling every hotel on the itinerary and asking them about this, and maybe they can help me out with their own refrigerator freezer. Gotcha.
Seth, you could put the injector in a thermos and then put the thermos in the cooler with the dry ice.
It might be.
Well, I'm not sure. You know, it's an interesting idea, but that doesn't guarantee that it's going to be at the right temperature.
Yeah.
It'll be within the right temperature. I mean, you've got a big range on a refrigerator.
Yeah, but you don't know what's going to penetrate into the thermos. If the thermos does its job, it could insulate it entirely from the dry ice.
No, well, I assume you were putting it in cold, and you could put ice in the thermos with the injector thing. It's just an idea.
Oh, I see where you're going with that. It's interesting though, because I looked on Amazon, and the thing I found that looked best is it looks like a thermos. It's a cylindrical object, and the ice pack that goes inside it is like a semicircle, which leaves the other semicircle in there for the medication. And I guess it is built like a thermos, and you close it up.
Are you driving?
No,
Oh.
no, it's a bus tour.
Because they do have plug-in refrigerators for cars.
That's crossed my mind too. I don't know what the heck. I don't know if that's even possible. But the important thing is that I've determined that I'm not going to let this stop me.
Where are you going?
My cousin has talked me into joining her on a fall foliage tour of New England.
You're going to be a leaf peeper.
Yeah, and the thing is, I've done New England before, but she hasn't. She's got her heart set on this, and I'm just happy to have somebody to travel with. And I want to, more than happy to get out and get away. And
that'll be beautiful. New England in the fall is gorgeous.
Yeah, I've done it mostly when I've been driving, so I wouldn't mind if somebody does the driving for me.
Yeah.
But considering what we've been through over the last 16 months or whatever, getting out and getting away is really good. It sounds really good.
Are you coming through Massachusetts?
Yeah, the first night, the first and last night will be in Boston, and I believe we're going through Provincetown as well.
So you're welcome to put your first and last day supply in my refrigerator, my freezer or refrigerator, because we live in Boston. I was just trying, I mean, Tom's idea, if you can't, I mean, you're on a bus trip, so your time isn't your own, right? To be able to go to a pharmacy, or is it? That's not a bad idea.
There's time after travel. Yeah, there's time at the end of the day, I suppose. I cannot, it's all in one injector pen, so I can't separate it out. But thank you for the offer. That's beautiful.
Maybe for, our group, we can like put the word out. Who has, who can do this on the way? We'll find each of us on a map for you.
Actually, Sally's got a very interesting idea, sort of a cooler within a cooler idea from the dry ice that I got to look into that. That's an interesting idea.
It is. Sally, see, maybe you should patent that idea somehow. Sally, you've frozen, I think, on the screen. I don't see your...
The cat unplugged the computer.
That's pretty funny. So, Tom, you said you had something you wanted to share.
Yeah, so I just wanted to share some interesting development. So, with CLL, and I think with some of the other blood cancers, they recommend that patients be immunized for pneumonia. And so Pfizer has been the maker of a product called Prevnar 13, which protects us against 13 different varieties of pneumonia, streptococcus, and they just got approval from the FDA for a new product, Prevnar 20, which will
wow
7 additional strains. So they don't expect to have the product available until mid to late August in pharmacies. But, I'm already starting to do some research to try to find out what the recommendation will be from the CDC for those of us that have already had the Prevnar 13. And then I think that, each of us should probably have a conversation with our, blood cancer doctor as to whether or not they advise, being immunized for pneumonia with one of the pneumonia vaccines. So
I had 2 different ones in March.
yeah,
I had Prevnar 13 plus another one because he said it didn't cover quite enough.
the Pneumovax 23 probably.
Yeah.
Pneumovax 23 was the original one, and the Prevnar 13 came out 4 or 5 years ago. And although it didn't protect for as many different subspecies, it was stronger. And so they recommend that you get that one first and then the other one later. I don't know whether that'll still be the case now that we are protected with 20 with the new Prevnar. So maybe the Pneumovax 23 will not be as important as it is now. But more information to follow on that. But I think that's across the board for everybody. We all talk about our infection risk, and so.
How often are you supposed to get your pneumonia vaccine? Is that an annual thing or?
The old one was every 5 years, and the new one is the Prevnar 13 is a once in a lifetime.
Oh.
And depending on whether or not you had the Pneumovax 23 prior to the Prevnar, then they recommend you get a second dose of that. And I think off the top of my head, it's at age 65. So it's not as frequently as it used to be, but it's not an annual vaccine.
That'll be interesting to find out. I'll have to ask. Thank you for that. Keep us posted.
Yep.
I had my quarterly appointment this week earlier, and Lynn was asking. And first of all, has everyone else shared? I know, wait a minute, we have. On my notes, I had checked. Jim, you had shared. I know you said you had something funny you wanted to share with us. So let's.
Yes, at the end, I don't know, is this the end?
Close.
Or almost the end?
Michelle wants to be last.
Oh, okay, that's right. Well, let's see, as a review, I am a disabled vet, okay, Agent Orange, Vietnam, all that stuff, okay, and I applied. And so I am a 200% disabled vet, okay, on the prostate cancer, okay, and the non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. How I got that, I'm not quite sure, but that's okay. So I have been on a treatment, essentially ADT, okay, androgen deprivation therapy. It sounds ugly, but I have got no testosterone, or I have the testosterone level of, I believe, a 4-year-old, okay, which is real interesting. At the time, I look at a kid and going, hey, you and I have a thing in common. So anyway, according to the VA, though, I am entitled to another thing because within the VA terminology, I have lost the use of my creative organ. And did you know the government has determined our value as a man in the bedroom? And did you know that you are supposed to be supplying $111.74 a month worth of performance in the bedroom? So, Michelle, you can possibly say, husband, I don't think I got my money's worth last month.
So that means I can tell him to go to the VA. He's already 100%.
Oh, no, not to go to the VA, but just to try harder, because, you know, that's how much he is then worth in the bedroom.
Here's
So-
your change.
$1,000.
That was pretty funny.
Anyway, so I take it,
Wow.
although I thought it was interesting in the beginning, I can imagine it first started in about 1962, and I can imagine, you know, a group over there going, you know, geez, what happens if he's out there, you know, in the combat and a bullet comes and it's gone? Oh, I think we ought to give him, you know, an amount, you know, because there's amount for hands and arms and legs. But now, at that point in time, you have to put it essentially into a law, a public law, and the public law gets put within the federal register. So I can imagine, okay, loss of use of penis. Well, I don't know if we want to actually publish that. You know, loss of use of dick. And then somebody over in the corner says, hey, man, I got it. Creative organ. How does that sound? And that flew. Although I don't know if they had in there all guys or they possibly invited a female in or two as a consultant, as a contractor. So anyway, out of it all, as I said, that's how much you are worth in the bedroom. Oh yeah, and
I'll let you comment on this one, Tom. This is your area.
Only a bureaucrat could come up with creative organ.
that's true. That's true. I was a civilian essentially after I retired anyway out of the Air Force, and it was a culture shock because it's totally different, you know, everything. So I had to adapt, and I did, and it was fun.
Now, Jim, is Agent Orange, was that why you have non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
Well, I don't know that. According to the VA, that is a presumptive disease that they will accept along with the, ischemic heart disease, type 2 diabetes, et cetera, et cetera. And I believe they accept leukemia also. And so you do not have to prove it. In other words, you have to prove it to them and they go, oh yes, it must have been caused. I mean, it was essentially automatic. So.
Tom, isn't Agent Orange, isn't that also, it can be one of the things that causes CLL?
It's the only one that's known to cause CLL. And, but in order to qualify for benefits, you know, under the VA for CLL, you have to have been in Vietnam proper, even one day.
Yes.
Have that automatic assumption that, as Jim mentioned, it's presumed that you have it. There have been some flyers that flew medevac flights in the same planes that were used to spray the Agent Orange. You know, they were never decontaminated. So, you know, medics that were frequently in these planes, they'd use it today to spray Agent Orange, and they'd use it tomorrow to take casualties, you know, out to a field hospital or a theater hospital somewhere in Thailand or at Guam or something like that. So, you know, there is some benefit for CLLers that have been exposed to Agent Orange, and you don't have to prove that you were exposed, except that those crews for the C-123, which is an older plane used at that time, were added on to the list.
Well, actually, that the thing you said is true, but it's not 100% true. They have, let's see, if a person was within, and where the Navy, okay, and the ships happen to dock in there, you are covered. There are locations within the United States, okay, that that a person is assigned. Also, now they just approved the people on the ships essentially off shore for it too. So it has expanded a lot as we happen to dwindle essentially in the numbers. So that's true. And the last thing I would like to impart to everybody, hopefully you are getting tested for the prostate cancer, getting a PSA test 2 times a year, no matter exactly what the doctors say or the government says, that once you happen to reach the age of 70, you should no longer be tested. That is our government, HHS. That is the biggest crock there is. And because the chances of it by age 80 are a lot. So if you desire to live an old age, and they also say, well, if you get it, you'll get the mundane kind and it won't kill you. Well, that's true, but that's not always true. So as I said, you should be getting a PSA test 2 times a year.
Would that show up in my annual PET scan?
In the annuals determined by the doctor as to the test they put onto the list, and it probably isn't going to be, because as I said, HHS has stuck out through their expert advisory panel called the U.S. Preventative Services Task Force, has said only the guys from 55 to 69 are to be tested, and you are to discourage and try to talk the person out of it. That is true. And in fact, actually, it was canned all the way from 2012. Nobody was supposed to get it. And it was only caught in about 2018 when they went, oops, the death rate had spiraled. So as I said, there's a lot of information out there which is not true, and they're just right now dropping the age. Well, they aren't not the experts in the government, except the cancer centers are even saying to get tested at age 50 even, and to start there.
That is very good to remind all of the men here, because of the last month, anyway, it was Men's Health Month. Now, so thank you for that. And I know that I noticed Seth was yawning. So not at you, I'm saying at the hour. Sorry, let me retract that. Was at the hour we're getting to. So I think that means that we're probably coming to an end. So I will share. You know, I'm not used to sharing, but yeah, I had my appointment this week and I'm officially no longer in remission. I was only in partial remission. So my CLL is back trending up for the first time in years. My white blood count is out of range. I know, not much out of range. It's only at 14. But you know, since I started treatment back at the end of 2015, pretty quickly I was in range, and I'm still waiting for my MRD test, not a bone marrow test, but through the blood. And Tom, it's not clonoSEQ. It's just whatever the old-fashioned, whatever test they used for MRD. And other things, you know, lymphs are up, I mean, I have visible more and more lymph nodes been popping out, but it'll still be, you know, who knows how long it'll be. With CLL, we have that weird disease that for many of us, other than people like Tom, you wait and wait for treatment. So in 3 more months, I'll have CAT scans to see internally. But what is interesting to me is, and of course, you know, a lot of this is new information for even CLL specialists. Some of my lymph nodes got bigger after my second vaccine, and they haven't all come down. And generally speaking, they say they come down in what, 7 to 10 days and I have quite a few, they've come down a bit, but they still haven't come down totally. And they're still rather big. So I was wondering if anyone sees this in their respective blood cancer or in themselves, if they had lymph nodes that went up with the vaccine. Because, you know, my specialist, you know, she was taking notes quickly because this is all new info, right? And I asked her, so, you know, of course, everything I asked on this appointment was, well, we really don't know, because they don't. You know, my protected, she is now wondering if I will be protected by my monthly immunoglobulin infusions because of, you know, the percentage of people probably that have had COVID that are donating that goes into that immunoglobulin. So that maybe every month now I'm getting a bit of a boost to help protect me. I don't know if you've been told that, Sally, but that's something they're considering, but she can't tell me for sure. So it's really interesting in that they really don't know, of course, because it's new, they don't know a lot on that. But as far as the lymph nodes, I don't know if, Tom, have you heard of that with anyone or anyone else
Yeah,
here?
so there's been quite a few people that have experienced an enlargement, typically either in the armpit or the neck on the side where they got the shot has been where
big on the side of the shot. I do have some others, but
yeah,
the side of the shot was
Mine got really big too. On one side.
on the side you got the shot, or was it the opposite? Yeah,
The side of the
so
shot.
I've heard that from a number of people, you know, and you know, again, here's where, you know, we're getting two stories. So there are some people that will say that the IVIG will protect us because it is being taken from people that have had COVID and people that have had the vaccine who have the antibodies, you know, and this is the pooled blood of at least 100,000 people. And so, you know, you should be getting some antibodies, but then you'll have other people, you know, other docs that'll say, well, I don't think so. It's not in there yet. You know, well, you know, we're a year and a half into this, you know, and yes, there's a lead time of 3 to 4 to 5 months to make a batch of IVIG, but, you know, what's being released today is, you know, the blood for that was drawn 6 months ago, you know, and we know there were no vaccines maybe 6 months ago or just starting to be people vaccinated, but we had a lot of people that had COVID. So, you know, at the time of the election last November, didn't we have 1,500,000 confirmed cases in the US or more? You know, I just pulling that number out of my ear, but you know, so you got, yeah, I got to think you got some protection there.
Well, but then someone else wrote to me that their doctor told them something about nucleocapsids and it attaching or not attaching or something.
Yeah.
So that's beyond my grade level here. Perhaps it's not about yours.
The nucleocapsid is the test that they do to show if you had the disease, but I don't know whether or not that would show up, you know, depending on the timing as to how close it was to your IVIG. You know, because it wears off. I mean, most people are getting it like once a month, you know, and so you got to figure that that's about how long that dose lasts. So, you know, still we have lots of questions, more questions than answers.
It is, and it is interesting, Sally, that you two had. And did your lymph nodes, Sally, stay enlarged for a long time?
No, only about 4 days.
Oh, yeah, I had my second shot in early April. And some of mine are still not as big as they were immediately after, but still there. So I am curious if it's activated anything or just now that they've grown, they're here, they're like, we're not going, we're staying.
Yeah. Or is it just a coincidence that's
That too.
you had started to progress, and it's timing of when the lymph nodes became enlarged was around the time you got your second vaccine. So one encouraging thing that we have a friend who is a pulmonologist in the Tampa area, and his company treats patients in about 15 different hospitals in the Tampa area, and they have not had a patient admitted to the hospital with COVID who has received a vaccine. And so, yeah, so that so even though you got to figure there's other people out there that are on some kind of chemotherapy, on some kind of immune suppressive drug, in that population, because Tampa's a pretty big size city, and so his group of like 10 or 12 pulmonologists, they have not seen any cases of people that they may get COVID, but they're not sick enough to need to be in the hospital. So I thought that was really, really encouraging. So it's really possible that, we do, even though we didn't produce antibodies, we may have some protection. So I'm feeling a little bit better about it since I talked to him, with that kind of information. And so, fingers crossed. But Michelle, it's always a shock to be told that it's back, and it's the day that we all dread. And so, you definitely have our best wishes and prayers, so that this thing works out. And we know you're in good care at Dana-Farber. And so, whatever the next step in the journey is, you'll be a trooper.
Oh yeah. Plus, it was like, so yesterday, the day before, I had been suspecting it. The day before, I'm like, nothing has changed really. Like this time around from the app, since it's, the first time was different, but this time around, it's just like, so really, what has changed since yesterday? Nothing. What were you going, Lynn, were you saying something?
I was going to ask you what your treatment was. Was it venetoclax and obinutuzumab or FCR? Or
I was
you said you were.
Yeah, FCR and ibrutinib simultaneous, full strength on both for 6 months, and then ibrutinib for over 4 years.
Okay.
And when I started on ibrutinib, they did not, and I don't know if they knew yet. They didn't know it would be indefinite, or it was not in the trial literature anyway. And I was given a choice at the end of 2 years to stay on the ibrutinib or go off of it. Even at that point, they gave a choice because they were studying it. And I chose to stay on because it was doing so well. I was doing so well. So yeah, FCR I wouldn't be given today, I don't think, because I'm unmutated.
So at this point, you are still taking ibrutinib?
No, I went off it 2 years and 2 months ago. So I've gotten, my numbers have all been good. Well, I don't know about the MRD numbers, but my numbers have all been good all this time until now. So that's.
So saying, given that, it sounds to me like ibrutinib may be, still an option since you got off of it when it was working. So, that's what you tolerated pretty well. And so, certainly would be a good, a logical choice to try it again.
I would never take ibrutinib again, Tom. I was miserable. I was like a quarter of the person you see today. I mean, this is me that you now know, but this is how I always was. And ibrutinib I felt like crap for years and had no energy.
Well, then you're a Loxo 305 girl.
Could be. We talked about that, and now there's going to be another trial that combines Loxo 305 or whatever begins with a P and ends in
pirtobrutinib, yes.
Yes. and some other things that Jennifer Brown will be, I can't remember if she said it's under peer review right now. It hasn't been released yet, but yeah, she's of course will be pushing I do that. We'll see. We'll see, but BTKs work on me. We know that. And other than not feeling, and the new ones may not have these side effects, the newer versions. So
that one is very, very specific to BTK, and most of the side effects from the other BTKs are from off target, stimulation of other tyrosine or inhibition of other tyrosine kinases. And so, very, very good side effect profile. In my blog post, look for the article by where I review Anthony Mado's presentation at last year's ASH.
okay.
All right.
Well,
I'll send you the link. I'll make it easy.
thanks. I appreciate that. Thank you. And yeah, I would rather do defined time. Like I wish I had been switched to venetoclax right when I finished ibrutinib, when I went off of it. But I don't know if they would have done that back. That was before the presentation at ASH.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that's
also an option, the venetoclax and obinutuzumab for a year.
Yeah, exactly.
So
that'll be down the line though. I'm trying not to worry about that now, but I will certainly be listening and making notes with everyone. So thank you all for your wishes. Sally.
I was just going to say, it's interesting that venetoclax is used for multiple myeloma and CLL.
Mm-hmm.
It is. And then there's something else. Maybe something's being studied.
It's being used now in some solid tumor cancers, in addition to chemotherapy. So,
I thought you said salad, like in lettuce and tomatoes.
Salad means look-alike drug. Solid. It's
solid tumor. Yes.
I left Florida. I'm in New York.
Taking on a New York accent.
Been here 3 days.
So by the next time we all see each other, Tom and I may actually have seen each other. My sister lives near where he is, and I'm hoping we get up there while Tom is there. So that'll be cool.
We met face to face once in Orlando at ASH 2019.
Oh my
Looks
gosh.
like Rick got a haircut.
You're styling, Rick.
Thank you. I put a link early in the chat window, which may be particularly helpful to the PV people. I think Nick saw it, but we ran a webinar last night on advocating for rare diseases. And it was a very good webinar with a lot of good information. And we had 3 advocates on there who have actually advocated for their conditions. None of them were blood conditions. Had I known, I might have gotten Al on there to tell us about what advocating he's done for PV, but maybe next year. So
CLL is a rare disease as well, and I believe
is CLL a rare disease?
It is, even though it's the most prominent leukemia, right? But it's a rare disease.
Still considered.
So I think the definition is less than 250,000 people.
Myeloma is one.
Is a rare disease? Oh, yep. Wow. I'm so sorry, because had we known that, I would have asked one of you guys to join that panel last night. I didn't think, I thought both myeloma and CLL were not rare diseases.
Nope. Myeloma is less than 30,000 a year.
Wow.
22, well, right? 1,000 a year.
Definitely, definitely listen to the the webinar, to the recording and the slides. Redity's Legislative Assembly gave the presentation, and then we had somebody with sarcoidosis, somebody for renal medullary cancer, and somebody for young onset Parkinson's. Because all of those are considered to be rare. But oh, I'm so sorry. Now I feel
That's
bad.
why a lot of the myeloma drugs have been released so quickly over the last 5 or 6 years, because they've gotten orphan disease status through the FDA. I think venetoclax may have been one of them.
All right. Okay. Well, we'll certainly know. We may do this again. We may well do this again, if not next year, the year after. But we'll definitely gather you in to do it. It was a really good presentation last night. So I put it in there, and it's on our website too. So
Well, and
you'll
actually,
find,
tell everyone on August 30th, there'll be a blood cancer webinar.
yes. So why don't you do the promo?
Well, I mentioned a little something about Nick earlier. So ANCAN and Patient Power are going on their first joint endeavor. ANCAN has asked them in very kindly to be a partner on one of their webinars that they do, which they get huge. ANCAN gets a very large audience, right, Rick, on your webinars?
Sometimes, but more last year than this year, because there's too much product this year.
Yeah,
but we have in the past regularly gotten over 300 people. Yeah.
Everyone has fatigue, they say, for these meetings now. In the beginning, we all love them, right? We embrace them. So it will be for blood cancer, and it will be pairs of family members, patients and someone in their family or a friend who's been with them on their journey, care partner. And it'll be a panel, and Esther and Andrew Shore will be speakers at it, the care partner and the patient. He's had 2 blood cancers. And it's August 30th. We are looking for, we're unsure if we have an AYA patient for this. So if anyone happens to know one.
What's AIA?
Young adult.
Young adult.
Oh, okay.
Cancer. It will depend.
We hope we can find a young adult. But this is a series we've done for different conditions where we look at how family members talk about their condition within their family. And we've done it for prostate cancer, ovarian cancer. We've done it for multiple sclerosis. We did one earlier this year for inherited mutations. And this one's going to be on blood cancers. And basically, we're going to have 3 or 4 pairs of patients and somebody from their family. It could be a parent, it could be a sibling, what have you. And Michelle left out the most important part, which is she's going to interview them. And
wow.
So she's going to put on her old news dress again and be the news person. And the Shores are going to do an introduction about how they've handled Andrew's disease in their family. And that's basically it. And then there'll be time for questions. And so it's been very successful and very touching in the past. Families don't talk about these issues between themselves. And what we're trying to do is encourage people to be more open and to share and to get more support from within their family.
And we're trying to have a mix of different blood cancers.
That's right. Yep.
So Nick, who joined us tonight, will be he will be PV, and plus he's an advocate for it with his brother.
Right.
He has a bunch of brothers. He has 3 brothers. I'm thinking, can 3 fit on the screen? I thought that would be kind of interesting, but it'll be one brother who's a dentist who will be with him. And he's been I guess all the brothers have been his care partners, which have been, it's lovely. We have an ML patient, and I'm trying for her to bring her sister, who was her donor for stem cell replacement, and Kenny with one of his kids. So that it's not only mixes of blood cancers, but also family relations or relations of who.
I think that's going to be great. I hope you send out an announcement early.
August 30th, I'm telling you now, mark your calendars at, is it at 8 p.m. Eastern time?
5 p.m. for you, Sally. August 30th, 5 p.m. for you. And you'll need to register, and we will get the registrations out probably the beginning of August. We try to get those registrations rolling probably the first or second week of August, because it won't just be drop-in, because we can't do it on this platform. We have a separate platform, a webinar platform, and so we get registrations. And then we'd love for you to spread the word to your other groups, because this is a topic. I mean, people like Sally and
we had
Tom,
a meeting on it this morning.
Did you? That's interesting.
The myeloma crowd had a webinar on patient and caregiver and their relationship this morning, and when I get it tomorrow, I will send it to you.
yeah, I mean, it doesn't get talked about a lot.
Yeah,
right?
It was just this morning we had it, but there were only like 30 people on it, I think. But
yeah, and it doesn't get talked about a lot. And we figured that out last year or the year before, and we said, look, we want to do a series of these for all different conditions. So these are the two we're doing this year. I'm not sure what we'll do next year. We'll think about it, but we'll be continuing this series next year with other conditions. So yeah, we'd love to see you all there, and Michelle will be the star of the show,
as usual, and as she should be.
That's right. That's right. We're trying to convince her to do the show in her Wonder Woman outfit, but I don't know if it's gonna happen.
I just may surprise you. You never know.
You never know.
Wondering. You know, we have to
She's a
get
warrior. She's a warrior princess.
That's right. So
That's right.
I don't know if CLL Society would encourage people attend, but if you could, I'll if
I can send that word out once we have
Yeah.
all the details.
We need the link to the flyer and to the registration form.
Yep.
Yeah.
The flyer will come out as a PDF with a live link on it, and also as a PNG, so you can use it for social media. And we'll have all of that beginning of August. So yeah, so it'd be great. It'd be great. And like I say, I think Michelle. I'm not really much involved. It's really Michelle and Esther Shore and Alexa. But I guess we may possibly need a young adult, because we were hoping for Farron would do it, but she may not be well enough. So that's the issue. And then if not, we really want either a child with a blood cancer and their parent. That would be great. Or, but somebody where we focus on how blood cancers affect younger people.
What about what's the girl's name that's in this group that has ALL? I'm drawing.
Ashley.
Yeah.
Ashley.
Yeah.
Ashley's
potential, right?
Yeah. There you go.
20s.
Her family is, because she moved back out of home. So I don't know if her family is. Yeah, we could find out. I don't know if her family is as involved.
I think she's got a boyfriend, so it's possible that he's her support network.
Yeah,
really, she's got a boyfriend. Last I knew, she was dating online, so she has a boyfriend at work.
She mentioned that, and that's what I understood too. And I brought it up last month, and I was seriously corrected that, excuse me, she has a boyfriend.
Yes. It's interesting. You may have been talking about dating in line in generalities or wishful thinking. Now, wait, I don't know. Isn't Ashley getting a hip today or tomorrow or yesterday?
her hip replacement was supposed to be around the time of this. I remember,
Yeah.
and I thought, yes, we should send her a note. Thank you
we
for.
need to send her a note. It's okay. I'll ask Alexa, because Alexa knows her, and I'll ask Alexa to touch base with her and see how she's doing on that hip replacement.
Is that Alexa like my Alexa?
He has his own Alexa.
I have my own Alexa. It's true.
Living and breathing.
Oh,
funny
okay.
thing is-
Isn't
the
that
funny thing
confusing when you go out?
Well, we've actually been in meetings where Alexa's been involved, and somebody said Alexa, and then the machine comes on.
I know, mine just lit up.
I know.
You know, it's really embarrassing if you hit her on the head and say, Alexa, what's the answer?
Alexa. I thought some of you know. So Alexa's the glue that keeps everything running with this.
Oh, okay.
We've
Well,
never.
my son told us that you can actually rename Alexa, so she
Okay.
was.
Oh, okay. Well,
I almost renamed mine Please because I kept feeling guilty just asking these questions without saying please and thank you.
we've never had any paid people, and I just couldn't handle everything. It was just too much. And Alexa Jet had started working with us and with thyroid cancer and a couple of other things, and was available, wasn't working. And we asked her if she would work for us on an hourly contract basis, which she agreed to. And she has been absolutely fantastic. I mean, she certainly made my life way easier, and we just love her. She's the star. She keeps everything ticking over. So
She's really quite good.
yeah. So that's who Alexa is. Sorry, I thought some of you knew, but that's it. All right, guys, listen. We'll get this all posted for you, and you can share it. And listen. It's right on the website. This event we did yesterday is right on the website on the front page, on the ANCAN front page at the bottom, advocating for rare diseases. So you'll find it right there. So
I've already got it on my top of my screen.
there you go. Okay. All
And our
right.
next meeting is August 5th.
Rick, maybe in our next meeting, you could notify all of us what color shirts we're going to wear.
Yeah.
I know, look at the three of us.
I know.
I got warm. I took my sweatshirt off, which was your basic gray.
I can see. I'll have to go into my closet and see if I can find one of my former Al Rubalcaba shirts. Okay. Because the shirts that get too small for him, he passes on to me, and they're lovely shirts.
I just want to tell you all, if I'm not here on August 5th, I just saw on my calendar, that is when the Vax Millions drawing is in Massachusetts. I don't know if any of you saw this. Now, to get people to get the vaccine in Massachusetts, they're in the lottery system, it's called the Vax Millions. And that the drawing is that day. So, you know, if you don't see me, I'll pick you all up on my new private jet.
Okay. All right.
Have a good evening.
Take care.
And thank you for the information, Lynn. If you've got an Alexa, you can change its name to Michelle. Okay, goodbye.
Take care, everyone. Good night.
Good night. Good night.